piecing style, which is this block right here. So we're going to be making it for the 20-inch by 20-inch Live Well, Live Strong quilt, which has foundation paper piecing is how it is constructed. So let's go ahead and get started on how to construct this block as a teeny tiny block with foundation paper piecing. So first of all, you get your pattern for the Live Well, Live Strong quilt at Stitches Quilting. I'm the designer of the pattern, and behind me is hanging the 60 by 60 inch quilt that's pictured on the front of the actual pattern. And then over here we have it in a negative space layout for queen, king, queen, twin, and full. And then over here is the bed runner version. And all of those come with the pattern, and the foundation paper piecing part comes with the pattern right now too, complimentary. So, but what you're going to do is you're going to have your foundation paper piecing pattern that comes with this. And when you go ahead and download this, it's complimentary right now. I don't know if I'll have it as a separate cost later, but it's going to look like this. And then you are going to print this off on newsprint paper. Hi, Liz, how are you? It's so good to see you. So you're going to print this off as on newsprint paper, which is just a lighter paper. So you can see that right here. And it's just a nice lighter newsprint paper. And I go ahead and I run it through my regular printer, black and white. So right here, I have taken everything, all the pieces from the Belong quilt block right here. And I have actually got it laid out on my little design board. So I have a little design board here kind of holding all the pieces together. Let me go ahead and flip the camera. I am doing great. I did something new today, you guys. I'll have to tell you all about it. I went ahead and I did an order with Walmart that was online, and then did it where I picked it up outside. I did that today, and oh my gosh, that was so slick. Has anybody been ordering and getting it from the, doing pickup? And Amanda, I'm so glad you have electric, water, phone, and internet again. Oh my goodness. That has been a lot. I'm so anxious to hear how you did and what was life like. Please share with us what life was like down there with all that cold weather. So anyway, but this is what the Belong quilt block as a foundation paper piecing block is going to be made out of let's count this way, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different units for the foundation paper piecing block. And of course I take a pencil and I just scribble on the paper the colors that I'm wanting to put on there, so I don't have to think about it really quickly. So I know these are all navy, these are teal right here, this is a yellow, so you've got the gist. So I've just kind of put a big thing. One thing I have to say is my Y right here looks like a T over here, so be careful with however you're doing it. I did T for teal, Y for yellow, so whatever, right? Okay, so we went ahead and we did that. I already have some of these sewn, so I am going to flip these over so that I can show you what it looks like when it's set up next to each other. So I have these ones sewn for you guys, and you can see the quilt starting, or the quilt block starting to come together, and we just kind of sew these pieces together. I started to sew together this strip, but I just wanted to show you how easy it is to do paper piecing across. I did not do this piece, which is the same as that one right there. I thought we could sew that together when we sew this together. And then this is the one corner unit I have it sewn for you so that we could do that together online. So anyways, but tell me what you guys have been doing. What is the weather like for you guys? We have got some snow, but Amanda, I'm so anxious to hear what that was like with no internet, electric, water, phone. What did you do to survive during that time? Please let us know. Okay, so I have my fabric setting right here in strips. So I like to just work in narrow strips when I'm working with foundation paper piecing. You can see I've got the various colors of this quilt block laying over here to my left. So over here, this skinny piece goes teal, white, red, white, teal. So I've already sewn these pieces on here, but I just thought I'd show you how simple this is. So I'm going to take another white piece, right up next to, because my next one is white, next to this red. So I've got a W for white. I'm going to lay this down, and I am going to match my 1/4 inch seam right there. And if I fold this over, you can see that I trimmed that at about a 1/4 inch seam. I'm going to match these together, right sides together. Okay, I see Amanda made a comment, and I'm just dying to see what it says. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. So, okay, let me go ahead. I'm going to put this under the needle. I'm sewing at a 2.0 stitch length, and let's hear what Amanda said. It was like in the South. So let's go ahead and see here. So Amanda says it was still very cold, still waiting for the backyard to dry so we can start clean up. We have a lot of huge tree limbs down. Fortunately, the biggest ones missed the house. We survived with no damage. Oh my goodness. Oh, Amanda, the ice storm of '98 was very scary, and we do have a wood burning stove, so that helped a lot. I bet that did. Okay, this is a very simple piece right here. Wow. Well, Amanda, I'm glad that you're doing really good, and you know, you still have more to clean up. And Amanda, you are in the South, and what you experienced was the wind damage and all of that. Is that right? Because you're not in Texas. Help me remember where you're at. Okay, so now I'm going to put teal. I've got teal and white to match up here. I'm going to take a teal piece, and I'm going to just trim off some of my white I used over here. Let's do that. I'm going to match these right sides together. I'm using solid, so it's a little bit easier. And I believe, and then we're going to go ahead and just, the scariest part was the sound of the trees cracking and falling. So I think you had the tornado damage and the wind damage. Is that right? That came through your area. So I'm pretty sure you're not in Texas with the severe, severe cold. Oh my goodness. I'm running this through. I've got my small stitch length that's perforating the newsprint paper. Let's go ahead and start with this piece right here. Now this section is section E. So you can see that right here. And then it's numbered E1, E2, E3, E4, E5. So that helps you know the order that you should go ahead and construct the fabric while you're stitching it here. So this is E1 is a lipstick, which is this pink color right here. So I'm going to grab this, and it is matching up to a gray. So let me go ahead and grab my piece of gray. So I'm going to go ahead and put these right sides together. And if I go ahead and I fold this E1 between E1 and E2, I'll go ahead and fold this down so you can see it a little bit better. So I folded this stitch line. I'm going to make sure that I've got this right about right here. And you can see I've got my 1/4 inch seam kind of showing up. If I want to, oh, really, Amanda? So that was all from the ice storm. Oh my goodness, so the trees were just cracking and stuff. If you want to, things can get a little bit confusing with this. Oh my goodness. Wow. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and just trim right here. I'm going to stitch right here on top of these, and then we'll open that up. I'm string feeding these along and kind of feeding them as I go, so you guys can see how I go ahead, and these go pretty quickly when you're string feeding them along. Let's go ahead and trim off these ones. And so I'm going to press this open right here with my little handy dandy small pressing, and I am also going to press this one open. Look, I've got threads going everywhere from these. These are just scraps of fabric that I am using. Wow. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that is extremely scary. I know. I used to have a generator, and Corey's family owns some land, and they have some storage units out on it. But it's several acres of land, and so we store a lot of things there. And unfortunately, someone stole my generator. I mean, I was just like so bummed. And it was my generator before I married Corey. So we need to buy a new generator. Generators have become a hot commodity, haven't they? Okay, so let's go ahead. Remember, I've got my little design board right here. This little unit right here is complete, so I'm going to line it up on that little design board, and let's continue with this strip that goes in the center of this block. So I'm going to trim. I've pressed this open. I have added the piece of white. I'm now going to add a piece of teal. So let's go ahead and fold this back on that dashed stitch line right here. So we're going to just go ahead and fold this back on that dashed stitch line. And you just need a piece of cardstock or something. I'm going to trim off my excess, my 1/4 of an inch. So I've got, it's a little hard to see because I've got white paper, but you can see, you know, it's this newsprint paper and the white fabric. It looks pretty similar right there. And I'm going to trim this on the edge just so it looks a little bit cleaner. Now I'm going to add a piece of teal fabric to the end here. Oh, your brother is checking into a generator for your house. You know what? I really want a new generator. I think having a generator is smart, but you know, I mean, I don't know. It's hard to know what to do. Okay, and what priorities we should make and things like that. But here, once again, is this small one. But yeah, that's something I would like to just have stashed away. I always have, and I'd love to add it back to kind of our preparedness. I don't know, but then you've got to have gas and things. Okay, let's go ahead and press open this. This is looking a little awkward because we're using big fabrics, but let's go ahead and press this open. And we're going to go right like this. So, belonging. But you know what? Let's see, Liz. Get a good one and lock it up good. You know what? You are so right. Okay, so now we're going to trim off this excess fabric that we just stitched together right here. So let's go ahead and give this a trim. I am going to just trim off my excess right here with a straight line because I find straight lines are easier for me. I'm going to trim off this excess over here. So once again, I've got a straight line. There we go. I'm going to trim off the excess on this side. And, oops, I think I need to put a new blade on this little rotary cutter. And then right over here, I'm going to trim more. But first of all, I'm going to, so I sewed E1 and E2, which is the lipstick and the gray, the pink and the gray. Now, my next one that I have to sew is E3. So I'm going to fold this back along the dotted line right there. So I'm going to take my business card, I'm going to lay it up here, and I'm going to fold this back on the dotted line. I'm actually going to tear a little bit of the stitching that I did on the paper to get that to be generally a straight line. So you can see right here, I tore that little stitch of the paper, which is perforated after a needle goes through it. I'm going to give myself a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance right there and take that back. Now I'm going to come over this way, so you can see that's looking more like the pink and the gray. I'm going to come over this way and I'm going to fold back this long line that is where the navy blue goes, and I'm going to trim off my excess fabric over here too. These are a little bit long, wide strips, but I don't know. They're just small pieces of fabric. I don't worry about it too much, right? So let's go ahead and take a look at what we've got here. I'm going to fold this back right here between the E2 and E4. I'm not going to sew it right now, but I am going to fold that back. And I'm going to just trim a 1/4 of an inch. That way I've kind of cleaned up my excess fabric. So we're really looking at 2 little triangles, which is what you've got on this front side. We're now going to add E3, which is a yellow. So let's go ahead and grab our yellow. When you are sewing on an angle like this, sometimes you need a little bit wider of a piece of fabric. So you can see with this yellow, it will go the width from stitch to stitch on that dashed line. I'm going to put them right sides together on the back of the paper, and we're going to stitch right along the dashed line on the top of the paper. So let's go ahead and put this under the sewing machine needle. Okay, here we go. Okay, now this quilt block is called Belong. And belonging and the feeling of love and belonging is extremely important to us. Yes, I know, Mary, it is so interesting to learn more. Here, I already folded this back. I'm going to clean up my edges right there. And let's just go ahead and put that at a 1/4 of an inch. And let's see what we've got here. I'm going to press this open. So this is that center strip. And it's so simple to just sew that long center strip. Just add the pieces of fabric. Let's go ahead and trim off our excess that we don't need, the excess fabric. And let's go ahead and lay this down on either side. So I don't know if any of you guys have heard of Maslow's theory, but Maslow's theory is a really interesting thing, and it's a hierarchy of our needs. And one of the very, the need that's third down is your need to belong and your need to belong to a community and to feel love. Okay, here's this strip that's completely finished right there. And we've got all of this, so we just need to finish this cute little end piece on here. So we added the yellow fabric over here. We're going to trim off that excess fabric, and let's keep building out this little bit of a block. But you can see I kind of do things as I go along, and I'm kind of string feeding my pieces together as I go ahead and stitch this. So it doesn't take that long. Okay, I'm hitting that little neck, and there we go. Okay, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. This is what we're building it out to look like. We need another piece of lipstick right there. So let's go ahead and grab that. Okay, we're going to put, so this is C3, 1, 2, 3. E4 is right over here to the side. I'm going to put these right sides together and then put it underneath the sewing machine needle. I also want to show you here that this stitch line only goes from right here to the edge of the paper. So I am actually going to start right here. You don't need to start in further. You can start exactly where that mark is. So let's go ahead and do that. And I go ahead and I bring my needle down right where that point started. Oh, my goodness. I touched my screen. I went from 2.0 stitches to 6.0. That's pretty funny. Okay, there we go. The sewing machine screen. Okay, yeah. All right, I was doing a basting stitch. That doesn't work with foundation paper piecing. That's pretty cute. So here you go. You can see I went ahead. Well, I tried to start there, but then I went back. Let's go ahead and fold this way. Let's do our pressing, and let's clean off the edge of this. All right, because now all we have to do is add the navy blue. All right, so let's bring this over. We're going to fold this right down, and we're going to clean off this so that we've got our 1/4 of an inch. So the two pieces of lipstick butting up next to each other. So I've gone ahead and I've cleaned that off. So I've got a 1/4 of an inch seam on this side for a seam allowance. And this is what it looks like. And when you open up the paper, you can see I've got some excess fabric here, but I'll trim that off later after I add the navy blue. So let's get this navy blue on here. I'm using a pretty wide piece of navy blue because we are doing that across. Does that make sense? Okay, let's go ahead and lay this. We're going to put it right sides together. I'm not going to worry if I've got excess fabric right there. And we're going to put this under the sewing machine stitch right on that stitching line. What kind of iron am I using? Barbara, great question. I love to work with Cricut. And so the iron I'm using is a Cricut mini easy press. It has this nice little base that holds it. And I really like to use this one. It gets really hot. You don't want to use an iron with any liquid in it or any starch when you're foundation paper piecing, because it will kind of mess with your paper, of course, if you get your paper to get wet or steam or trying to use starch. So let's go ahead and press this open, and we have this one done here now. Okay, so let's go ahead. We've got that nice and done. Remember, let's trim off the excess navy blue fabric. And I'm going to just go like this, and I can use these other pieces later. Let's go ahead and trim off these excess areas. And I want to rather see that edge, that solid line. So I'm just kind of going a hair over the solid line because I want to make sure that I am for sure getting that. So let's look at this. Here's what our block looks like. I'm going to trim off some of this excess fabric over here. And let's clean up our little block before we start sewing them all together. Okay, so for foundation paper piecing, we now have all the elements of our Belong quilt block. So remember, this is for the Live Well, Live Strong quilt. The Live Well, Live Strong quilt has 26 quilt blocks that are about health and wellness. It's a skill building quilt, and you know, it's a sampler quilt. That's the words I'm looking for. So now let's go ahead and sew this together. We're going to sew these 3 pieces into one unit, and then sew each of the 3 rows together. I'm going to put these right sides together. My pattern has a 1/4 inch seam on both sides. So you want to match up your 1/4 inch seam, and then it has a stitching line that you're going to stitch on. So it's pretty simple and pretty easy to match those up. Put that underneath the sewing machine and just stitch across the paper on that dashed quilting line. So, and remember, this quilt block is about belonging to different communities. One of the things I love this quilt block is because there's many different communities we have. We have our family community, we have friendship communities, we have our online community of quilters. We have lots of different communities that we belong to, maybe a work community, maybe a church community, and all of these communities have different meaning and value to our lives. And we want to have a variety of communities in our lives, so that if one of our communities is kind of failing us and breaking down, or we don't feel really safe or secure in a particular community, we can kind of lean on to another community. Let's go ahead and piece these pieces together, and we'll keep doing that. So it's important that we feel like we belong to different places, and that need to belong is something that you're wanting to build in your lives, and you're wanting to make sure you've built several different communities that you belong to, and kind of learn how to interact with the different communities so you can feel valued and feel good about yourself, and learn kind of, well, an example is the Everyone Can Quilt Facebook group. Sometimes we have like people that want to share things that aren't quilting related, right? So you kind of want to follow the different guidelines of different groups that you belong to, kind of those unwritten things. Let's go ahead and press this open. When you're pressing, you can press on the front side with your fabric, but you can also press on the back side with the paper and the newsprint paper. So it's not going to have any problem when you do that. And when you kind of get bigger and bigger sections of your foundation paper piecing together, sometimes you need to press just a little bit more. Okay, I am going to make sure that looks a little jagged right there. Let's go ahead and clean up all of these edges. Yes, Barbara, what's really fun about the Live Well, Live Strong quilt is you can make it as just a standard size quilt, which this is the size of the quilt pattern, of the basic quilt pattern of the standard, and then this is the size of the foundation paper piecing block. So then we are making something that is familiar to you and easy to kind of then build into the, you know, take it from a standard block to a foundation paper piecing block. Okay, now let's go ahead and bring this together, and I tell you, when you do this, you'll know how to foundation paper piece anything. We're going to put that right sides together. We're going to want to pin on this because we're okay without pinning too much. We definitely want this center red section to match up with that right. So let's go ahead and stick. I use these teeny tiny little pins for me because I feel like they go through the paper better, and they're small with, you know, when you're sewing together the paper, the fabric, and the seams, you don't want too much bulk, and I just feel like these smaller pins help out. Okay, let's go ahead and run this through at that 1/4 inch seam. I could also stick a pin on these both ends, but I'm going to kind of finger these through. Okay, so I'm just stitching on that dashed line and bringing it straight across, and I'm going through my different seams where there's different bits of bulk on there. Let's go ahead and see if I matched up my seams. So, and we only have one more row to go. I took up my pins. That looks like a good match. Isn't it amazing how perfect and how exact foundation paper piecing is? And in the old days, not the old days, but in more vintage days, we're now going to take this last piece and match that up. We're going to put it right sides together, and I'm going to make sure that my red and the white are matching along that. On this other side, I'm stitching with the navy blue on those two small blocks. So I'm going to stick some pins in it, and we will have this done. So you guys, belonging is so important, and it's so important that we feel that we can belong to communities. The other thing I do, and I want to show you guys this, is when I pin, I'm pinning a bit of a distance from where I'm going to stitch. This pin right here is too close to my stitch line. So let's go ahead and bring this further back because we don't want much bulk, but we do, it does kind of slip, and we do want everything to be kind of held fast as we're pushing these different layers through the sewing machine. So let's go ahead and bring this over and stitch this right across. Okay, so after this, we only have 2 more quilt blocks. Oops, I went off my line. I'm going to go back a little bit, off my little stitching line. We only have 2 quilt blocks to do. The shine quilt block, which looks like a sunshine, so shine, and the strength quilt block. So I'm so excited. And then this will be started as a formal course. I'm going to press everything. You can see how it's kind of wanting to go with the paper. We have to kind of train the paper and teach the paper which way to go with our iron. And we can press it along. Okay, so that feels pretty good. That feels pretty good. All right, ladies, so that is the Belong quilt block. Let's go ahead and flip the camera around. So this is the Belong quilt block large. This is that's a standard size. And this is the Belong quilt block that is foundation paper piece. So you can see all the paper on the back of that. And belonging is very important for our health and wellness. And we have a very strong need, everybody does, to belong. And that's something that we can graciously give to others to help them feel loved and belonged, that they belong to something. And it's something that we need to build for ourselves and to teach our children how to belong. So here we go. So the Belong quilt block is ready. This is the 20-inch by 20-inch Live Well, Live Strong quilt. And you guys, we need ideas on quilting this one. So it's really fun with all the paper. Remember, don't take your paper out after you've finished your block. You're going to want that in there to construct everything. It's so good to see you guys. I will be back. Today is Wednesday. I'll be back on Friday at noon. And we will be working on the Shine quilt block, which is this one right here, and it's the large size. So Shine is our next block. Strength is our last one. Anyways, love you guys so much, and I can't wait to shine with you this next week. I have definitely been working on my Belong skills this week, and I can't wait to see you guys on Friday. So see you at noon on Friday. Love you. Bye-bye. I'm so glad I belong to a community with you.